Few people realize it, but there's a silent moment when something inside you detaches itself from the world and begins to observe. It's not thought, it's not emotion, it's a strange, lucid presence that arises when you stop for a second and realize you're alive. Most people spend their entire lives without entering this space. They live trapped in their minds, in the stories they tell themselves, in their fears, expectations, and external pressures. And they call this normal life. But what you call spirituality doesn't begin when you believe in something. It begins when you realize what's happening inside you right now. Because spirituality isn't a lofty idea. It's a heightened state of consciousness. Because look around you. People are breathing, working, relating, arguing, suffering, desiring, but few are truly present. Most live within a mental narrative, within repetitive thoughts, memories, worries, expectations. The body is here. The mind is in the past or the future, and consciousness is almost always absent. This isn't a lack of intelligence, it's a lack of presence. And spirituality, in its deepest sense, begins precisely there. The moment you realize you are trapped in your mind, you don't awaken spiritually when you start believing in something. You awaken when you begin to perceive what is happening within you in real time. When you perceive your thoughts arising, when you perceive your emotional reactions, when you perceive your impulses, when you realize that you are not these things, but that which observes them. That is the first leap of consciousness. Before that, you live identified. Identified with thought, identified with emotion, identified with the ego, with the story you tell yourself, who I am, what I did, what was done to me, what I deserve, what I fear, what I desire. This internal narrative seems like you, but it isn't. It is conditioning, it is culture, it is childhood, it is trauma. It is social expectation, it is fear, it is desire, it is memory. Spirituality begins the moment you realize that this narrative is unfolding within something larger. A silent field of consciousness that doesn't speak, but observes. That doesn't judge, but perceives. That doesn't react, but is. Most people have never come into contact with this, and that's why they live as characters in a story they didn't write. When someone says they want to evolve spiritually, they're almost always imagining becoming a better person, calmer, more loving, more enlightened. But that's still the ego wanting to improve itself. It's still the identity wanting to become a better identity. Consciousness doesn't want to be better. It wants to be free, free from identification, free from automatism, free from the illusion that you are what you think. And that's where spirituality becomes something profoundly practical. It's not about going on a retreat in the Himalayas. It's about perceiving what happens inside you when someone ignores you, when someone criticizes you, when you don't get what you want, when something is out of your control. If you collapse, you are unconscious at that point. If you observe the collapse without becoming it, you are conscious. That is true spiritual work. It's not about transcending the world. It's about seeing the world without getting lost in it. Think of someone who irritates you. Really, someone who just thinking about them makes you feel tension in your body. Now notice, what hurts you isn't the person. It's what your mind says about them. It's the story you create. It's the identity you defend. If you were only consciousness, that stimulus would pass like a sound. But because you are identified with the ego, it becomes an attack, a threat, an offense. Spirituality is about getting out of that reactive mode. It's seeing that you don't need to protect an image all the time. When you are unconscious, you want to be right. When you are conscious, you want to be present. When you are unconscious, you want to win. When you are conscious, you want to understand. When you are unconscious, you live in internal war. When you are conscious, you live in observation, and that changes absolutely everything. The way you relate, the way you work, the way you handle money, the way you react to failure. The way you love, because human suffering doesn't come from life, it comes from resistance to life, and resistance is born from the mind trying to control what cannot be controlled. Spirituality as a higher state of consciousness is, in practice, the ability to allow reality without destroying yourself from within. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you lucid. You still act. You still decide. You still create. But you don't act from fear. You act from clarity. And that difference is gigantic. Unconscious people live trying to fill a void. With relationships, with money, with status, with validation, with distraction. Conscious people realize that emptiness is not a problem. It is a space where something new can be born. When you sit in silence and observe your mind, you begin to realize how noisy it is, how much it creates problems that don't exist, how much it relives past pains, how much it anticipates catastrophes that may never happen. Spirituality is learning not to drown in this river. It's sitting on the bank and observing, and the more you observe, the less you identify. And the less you identify, the less you suffer. And the less you suffer, the more present you become. And the more present you become, the more alive your experience becomes. This is a heightened state of consciousness. It's not seeing lights, it's not hearing voices, it's not having powers, it's being here, now, truly. A conscious person feels more, but suffers less because she doesn't create a story based on what she feels. She lets it pass. Sadness passes, anger passes, fear passes, pleasure passes. What doesn't pass is the field that observes all of this. That's you, not the character, not the name, not the past, not the trauma, consciousness. And when you start living from there, something profoundly changes. You stop begging for life to be different and start responding to what it is. You become less manipulable, less reactive, less dependent on approval, less enslaved by fear. That's spiritual freedom, and that's why so many people avoid this path. Because losing the illusion hurts. Because ceasing to identify with the ego feels like death. Because you realize that much of what you called I was just a construct. But it is in this deconstruction that something real is born. A silent presence, a clarity that doesn't shout, a strength that doesn't need to impose itself. If this kind of content resonates with you, if something within you recognizes it, then it's not a coincidence. This is your own consciousness wanting to remember itself. And on this channel, we delve into exactly this kind of reflection, without superficiality, without ready-made phrases, without superficial spirituality. Subscribe, activate the bell, and continue this journey with us. Because awakening isn't about becoming someone special. It's about ceasing to live like someone who is asleep.